I got a call recently from a newspaper because they wanted to do an article with me about what it's like to try and make YouTube a career. Not that I've managed to do that at all. And the reason they got hold of me was because they'd just done a survey of teenagers in schools just south of London here. And they'd asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And YouTube celebrity was number 4 on their list of things they wanted to be. And obviously that threw parents and teachers into a bit of a panic. What do we do with this? What do we tell our kids? How do we prepare them for this? Surely this isn't a real thing. And I was even invited to come down and speak to a group of career guidance counselors from different schools because they were hitting this problem all the time. Kids wanting to be social media famous as an actual career. It got me thinking that we make social media way too important. Yes, it's an amazing tool. Yes, we live in an incredible time where we're able to put our work out there without having to go through publishers or studio execs or anything else. We can load our work online and we can find our audience, and that's incredible. But to me, the point is always the work that I put online, not its success as measured by social media. In the same way that my camera is just the tool for me to do my work, social media is just a tool for me to get my work out there, but my social media platforms are not the point. So if you're an artist trying to use social media to get your work in front of people, here are some hard truths that once I've faced them really helped me. Number 1, it's very hard to make a living from YouTube. It's undeniable that having a big social media following can help you get work in. I mean, it certainly hasn't worked in my case, not that my following is massive, but I haven't seen a lot of work come in because I have any kind of following online. But I do know examples of photographers, friends of mine, who are great photographers who've lost out on work because the company that was hiring wanted to go for someone with a big Instagram following, say, because they knew that not only would they get images out of that person, but also that person might share those images on their platform and that company would get free advertising. So yes, it can work. But I think a lot of people who want to be social media famous are doing it because they're watching famous YouTubers who are running around the world and buying mansions and driving fast cars and taking first-class plane tickets and helicopters places. And we think, well, that's definitely easily accessible because look, it happened to them and they're living the dream. And that's true, but that is the top fraction of a percent, that very, very upper echelon. And to think that we would all want to get on social media and we'll all make it there is naive. We have to be honest about what a gamble that is. I think a lot of people also have a very inflated view of how much money you make on social media platforms as well. I mean, I just crossed over 100,000 subscribers, which I'm really grateful for. But I think a lot of people think if you get over that mark, you can just start to live off YouTube. But I've crossed it, and I can tell you that with the ad revenue I make, it covers maybe my grocery bill for a month. It doesn't touch rent or most of the stuff that needs to go on. So it's not as big as you think it is. Plus, YouTube's algorithms are changing the whole time. So for me to put all my eggs in one basket, hoping that that money comes through every month the way that it does, and trying to build any kind of finances on that is a very risky thing to do. Which brings me on to the next thing. We don't understand the algorithms. None of us do. We're all guessing, really. Google and Facebook would never tell us what their algorithms were and why they favor some content over others, because they know if they told us, we just manipulate the system and they'd struggle to control their own platforms. At the end of the day, you have to remember that we don't pay for these platforms. The advertisers pay for these platforms. And that's why, whether they admit it or not, Facebook and Google's first port of call is always going to be to keep those advertisers happy, because that's the revenue that lets them grow and build their companies. I'm sure you've heard about the recent adpocalypse on YouTube, where companies came to YouTube and said, we're not happy with the videos that you're putting our ads on. Some of this content we just don't agree with. And so YouTube responded by putting in place a very strict algorithm, started to demonetize videos all over the place. I know I saw a load of my videos demonetized, and mine are hardly controversial. Some YouTube creators saw their income go down to 20% of what they were earning before because of this backlash. And that will happen again and again, I'm sure, as they try and work out how to do this. YouTube as a company has grown to a point where it's so hard to manage itself. It's colossal now. They don't have enough people to watch all these videos, and these algorithms aren't going to be intelligent enough to fine-tune and get everything exactly right. Which is why I, for one, don't put all my eggs in YouTube's basket is either a revenue source or a way to get my work out there. I don't trust it enough for that. You might already know this in theory, but you will have to have a thick skin. I know some people want to jump on social media because they feel like they're going to get validation for the work that they're doing or the art that they're putting out there. But we also know that the internet can be a nasty place, and to have that idea can be a naive one. I think especially if you start to get a little bit of traction with your work at the very beginning, people will jump on that, and you'll find that there will be positive comments, but there'll also be negative ones. And people are really, really good at working out what your insecurities are and point comments straight at those because they know they'll hurt and they want the response. Is the whole reason that they're doing it. And unless you already know and have already been honest with yourself about your flaws and about your insecurities, that stuff can really sting. And no one is above or beyond this stuff. Everyone gets hit by this at some point. I'll give you an example of a comment I got just this week. Sean, I'm unsubscribing because I'm saddened at what a totally shallow, soul-devoid human waste you turned out to be. As you'll know from the recent highlights video I put out, human beings have a negativity bias, which means we hold on to negative stuff way easier than we hold on to positive stuff. And that's true of comments as well. Even if you're getting way more positive comments, it'll still be the few negative comments that keep you awake at night. I'll give you a tip for when you're having to deal with comments on the work that you're putting online. Not all comments are created equally. Personally, I don't take advice from a lot of people, and I know that insults a lot of people, but I also know that there are a lot of armchair YouTubers and photographers out there. If I'm going to take advice from people, I want it to be on some sort of equal playing field. And by that I mean that you can see my face, you know my real name, and you can see the sort of work that I produce. And if you're going to give me advice, and I love receiving good criticism that helps me develop and grow, I also want to know your real name, I want to see your face, and I want to see some of the work that you're producing. I know that will offend some people again. People will say, does it matter what work I produce? I'm just giving you advice on your stuff. But of course it does. Let me give you a ridiculous example. Say a first-year acting student emails Tom Hanks to tell him, listen, you've been acting wrong your whole career. You should have been doing this, this, and this, and you should change it from now on. I hope Tom Hanks ignores that email or answers it very generously, but doesn't change what he's doing. It doesn't come from a credible source. But if Anthony Hopkins picks up the phone to Tom Hanks and says, hey, listen, I saw your last movie. I've got some notes if you'd like. Great work, but this is what I was thinking. I bet you he will take that call and he'll take the time to listen and might even do some course adjustments because of where the comment comes from. If it makes sense in that instance, it makes sense in this one too, because the comment is coming from an informed and a totally unthreatened space. My personal philosophy is to stick to what I said I was doing at the start and to keep creating in that vein. If I changed my mind or changed direction on this channel every time someone jumped on and said they disagreed with what I was doing in some way, I would end up with some sort of people-pleasing mess instead of the clear vision that I started with. And that's what I would say, is if you're going to start something, don't let yourself course correct every time someone second guesses what you're doing. Own the vision you began with. Another important thing to remember is the numbers don't mean what you think they do. My wife often says to me, isn't it amazing that 100,000 people want to hear what you have to say? As if there are a couple of stadiums out there of people sitting waiting to hear what comes out of my mouth. I know that's not true at all, and I take all this with a huge pinch of salt. I mean, I know I'm subscribed to, I think, 320 YouTube channels, and I maybe only keep up with 20 of them deliberately. That's the thing with the internet, is it's a million miles wide and a centimeter deep, and we're all just skimming in and out of things. So to say to yourself, I want this many subscribers, is a little naive if we're thinking that's how many people are sitting and who just can't wait to hear what we have to say. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for every single individual who's subscribed to this channel and wants to keep up with these videos. That feels great, but I do take it with a pinch of salt. Because for me, depth is more important than width. And by that I mean if someone comes to me tomorrow and says, hey, we will give you 1 million subscribers right now if you say you want it. Or we can take away 10,000 subscribers and you can stick with 100,000 forever, but they're truly engaged people who are following along and are involved in what you're doing. Which would you choose? I would jump at that second one. Another thing to remember, and this might sound a bit harsh, but a large following doesn't necessarily mean you're talented. Let's be honest, the internet in general and YouTube and Instagram specifically are far more about entertainment than they are about talent. I mean, I know a load of photography channels that aren't necessarily the most talented photographers, but they give you good information. I mean, I'll use myself for an example. I don't think people follow this channel because they think I'm one of the best photographers in the world. I think you enjoy what I say. And I don't feel bad about that. I mean, I know it's the combination of things that's the reason why you might follow these videos because of what I'm talking about. And I care as much about the communication as I do about the photography. And I say that to remind you that just because you don't have a huge social media following does not mean you aren't an incredibly talented photographer. I might have a bigger social media following than you, doesn't mean I'm better than you as a photographer or a filmmaker. And that leads me to the last thing, that authentic expression and a pursuit of fame rarely go together. I feel like I say this on this channel a lot, but for me it's incredibly important, so I'm not going to stop. You have to ask yourself, are you after fame first, or are you trying to express yourself as an artist? I heard an interview with a stand-up comic recently who said that when I do comedy, I don't want the whole room to be laughing and enjoying my set. I want 50% to love what I'm doing and be laughing, and 50% to be outraged and ready to walk out the room. Because he said that the comedy he wants to do is the kind that pushes the boundaries and gets us to ask the tough questions about society. And to do that, he knows he can't go after popularity. He has to hit that middle ground, and he has to lose potential fans in order to stay true to his art form. I see this sort of thing from a lot of people trying to hack their way to success. I was talking to a YouTuber friend of mine the other day, and we were sort of comparing comments that we get, and how many comments are, tell us your exact settings, tell us your exact camera you're using, tell us the exact soundtrack you used in that video, tell us the exact location you shot this, because they want to go out and copy and paste exactly what you did, expecting it to get the same result. And my heart breaks for those people, because at the end of the day, if they're just copying and pasting something I've done, they're just going to be a pale imitation of something I'm doing, instead of owning what they need to be doing and being a pure vision for themselves and putting themselves out there in a way that's fresh and unique and original, and ironically is, I think, the best way to build an audience. I think that we have to remember that the important stuff about life, the important stuff about our art, happens in the real world, and we can't take too seriously what happens online. We have to back ourselves in the flesh and blood reality that we're in with everything that we do. We have to start taking social media less seriously. In a world where we're forgetting how to disagree with each other like adults, where we're being pushed into bubbles online of people who only agree with our point of views, and forgetting that there's a wide diversity of opinions out there. We're forgetting how to debate. We've got the likes of Cambridge Analytica who are using these kind of things to even try and change the course of democracies around the world, and where people are getting so frustrated that they're not getting what they believe they're entitled to from social media, that they're even willing to walk into buildings and start shooting at people. We have to stop. Create vibrantly and vigorously, and over time, hopefully those who really love what you're doing will gravitate towards it. I can't guarantee you how many will come and what their response will be. No one can guarantee you that kind of thing. But can you get yourself to a place where that doesn't really matter, that you're so in love with what you're producing and putting out there that that in itself is fulfilling you, and everything else, including the response to it, is just a bonus? Because if you can, you'll save yourself, and ultimately, I believe it's the best way to find an audience who really cares.